Happy New Year, guys. Russ here from Willie's Firewood. Sorry it's taken me a bit to get a video between the holidays and me being under the weather the last few days. Really haven't had a time to make a video, but as you can see, it's wintertime in the wood yard again. It's cold again. So what that means is when I spin around here, the roadside racks are taking a beating. We'll walk through here and check the front out as well. Just the last couple of days, we've sold about $150-ish out of the racks. See there, got a couple of empty 50s, big truck coming. But today is not really going to be about the roadside racks. Today we're going to go inside where I'm not feeling so well, and we are going to make some value-added firewood products. There's a few channels that talk about those quite a bit, that do bundles and bags. This isn't bundles or bags. This is something that you can use to promote your firewood sales. It's something that you can use to gain and obtain new customers, and it's something you can use to get your bundles and your bags into retail locations. So we're gonna go inside and we'll take a look at what we're talking about. All right, guys, fire starter time. This is what we're after. Perfectly sealed, waterproof, easy to start fire starters. These are made with a food grade preservative. They are all hardwood, and these little suckers right here will burn for 5 to 7 minutes a piece, all on their own with no extra fuel. Just throw them under your kindling, under your dry firewood, and one of these is usually enough to start a fire. So what we need for that is we have my wife's kitchen table here covered in our silicone molds. We've got some different shapes just because grabbing along the way. There's some heart shapes. We've got squares. I've got pentagons there. We've tried round. Round doesn't seem to work. The material to preserve and seal this doesn't really flow around it very well. We put a piece of candle wick in each one. Where these are food grade, you can use them in your barbecue grill, your pellet stoves, your smokers, your wood stoves. And there's our dry sawdust. This I dry in the smoker outside to get all the moisture out so that it's good and dry for what we use. Might have heard a little bit of roofing behind us. My wife got this little guy, Mac. Mac is a French bulldog, and he is the new companion to Olive, the black dog right there. She's a pug. And to Miss Penny. Penny's a good girl. Penny is also a pug. Penny always comes over for scratches. So they're gonna keep me company by the wood stove right here. We have a soapstone, hearthstone hybrid wood stove, and that heats our entire home. Over on the other side here is our wood box. It's about 5 feet tall, and that holds enough wood to heat the house for 4 to 5 days. We've got good stack temperature. For those of you that burn firewood, that optimal range right there is a real good spot to have your wood burning to prevent creosote buildup in your chimney and in your pipes. We usually run it on the higher side. I just filled the stove not long ago, so it's just getting going. We'll take a look at that in a little bit when we get going. But let's turn around here. We're gonna come through, and I'm gonna show you how we heat our preservative. We have a bag of it right here in the sink. These are wax pellets, food grade wax pellets. And over here in my wife's oven, we have wax melting and pouring devices. So by the time we get all of our trays over here filled with our wicks in it, that wax should be melted and ready to go. So I'm going to set you down. I'm going to get filling some of these up, and we'll be back and talk to you in just a minute. So as a disclaimer to this process, guys, I want to let you know I do not own any rights to any of this stuff. This is something that I came up with all on my own. It works well for me. It may or may not work well for any of you. If it does work well for you, you're more than welcome to try this. If you have any questions, give me a shout. I'll help you as best I can. There are some people in this industry that are very secretive about how they make these things and about how they put things together. This is not a hard process. It's a little time consuming, and the steps that are used to make these can be a little bit tedious. But I do this when it's raining. I do this when I'm not feeling well, like today. I do this on days that it's too cold or too hot to do anything else. I can come inside where it's comfortable. I can get a drink, a snack. I can go ahead and make these. I can do them in the evenings. There are pieces and parts of this process that you can do ahead of time. I have not made any since early this summer. I had a really large stockpile. I've used through all of those. I have some orders that need to go out. I have some residential heating customers that use these every year to start their fire every time they start a fire. I have a few retail locations that sell these in our bags. And I have a couple of retail locations that sell these loose as well. So it's time to restock. Sitting in front of me, these trays here, I can make about 270 fire starters in a batch. I retail these fire starters wholesale for about 60 to 75 cents a piece, depending on volume and where they're going. I retail these at $1 to $1.50, depending on where they're going, for the public. So there's some room for retailers to make some money on this, and it still makes it a fairly good product to use. If you look at some of the fire starters that are offered out there on the shelves in the commercial space, they're less than what I would say ideal. They're messy. Tumbleweeds, things like that. There's a lot of byproduct that comes off. These are fairly clean. There's not a lot of dust. There's not a lot of sawdust. There's not a lot of anything extra. They're sealed. They're waterproof, and they're food grade. So it helps. But again, just want to let you guys know, this is no trademarked thing. This is no industry secret. I'm fairly transparent. I want to help you guys and the rest of you woodhounds out there to grow your business and hopefully be able to do more and open up some new opportunities and doors. So we're going to get started filling these up, and when we get ready to pour a few of these, we'll come back and we'll take a look. But right after this, I'm going to kind of go through the process a little bit of what these trays are and what we look to do at the store, because supporting local business is what we should all be about when we're doing our small business stuff. And I basically just take my finger and I form these into a Z shape to hold them into the corner. As you can hear behind me, the dogs have a case of the zoomies and are running around and will probably make some noise for us, but that's okay. So we take and we fold these in, and as we fold them, we're tucking them to the corner, and I just tuck them all to the corner just because it makes me feel a little bit better. No real reason why they have to be in the corner. You could put them in the middle or wherever you want, but it is definitely through my trial and error putting this wick in first and on the bottom is absolutely the way to go, because if you try to put them in after, it makes a mess. There are some other people that use cupcake liners or paper cups, and they use the cups, and I tried it. I didn't like it. I couldn't find the size I wanted. I wanted something that was a little bit smaller. I knew with the amount of fuel that I was putting into this with the hardwood sawdust that I would get a decent burn time. I also knew with the wax that I was putting in here that it would be food grade and it would kind of seal it up. Food grade was something I was kind of big on because I wanted something that somebody could use in a barbecue grill or a smoker. Those are some of the quicker growing industries. Everybody's trying their hand at barbecuing and smoking, and in doing that, it opens up an opportunity for us to sell some stuff. So we have all our wicks here in the tray. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get over into my bin over here. I'm going to fill this tray here up. You'll see it on the side with some dry sawdust. I dry the sawdust from our green hardwood firewood in our pellet smoker until it is nice and dry. There's some pine needles and some other things in there. And you know, pick the bigger things out as you go. But we put some sawdust in the tray. I'm actually left-handed, so I'm going to switch some stuff here for you. Put this over here, and I've got a pretty big hand, but I've done enough of this. I know that basically a pinch is what I want. And I neaten that up into the tray. And we just kind of go down through, we fill them up. You don't want to pack this too tight. That was one of the mistakes that we made early on. If you pack them too tight, the wax doesn't get to the bottom. Therefore, it doesn't seal the bottom, and you end up with a lot of loose sawdust after. Do the starters still work? Yes. Are they waterproof? Not so much. So, you know, as we pop these out, you'll get a few every now and then that don't seal right to the bottom, and those I'll keep out. Those will be stuff that I will give away to new customers, things like that. Something that's not necessarily 100% ready for retail, but is enough of an opportunity for them to see what these will actually do that it's going to get them calling back again. Again, usually make these up and have a bunch ahead. Made a bunch early this spring on a rainy day because all it did was rain this summer up here in May, in June and July and August and most of September. And now it's kind of still raining and still not quite winter. I've been under the weather, so we haven't been doing a lot of bulk firewood, but it's been cold again. So I got a feeling that Kevin and I are going to have to fill up the roadside racks and get those taken care of before weekend because they are calling for some more snow and some more cold. Off to my shoulder there, you can see our wood stove burning in the background. Our primary source of heat for our home is wood. We enjoy it. It's quiet, saves on electricity because our electricity bills are crazy, and it gives us an opportunity to, you know, enjoy some of the fruits of our labor, or of my labor. I don't know about you guys, but one of the best things to see is a nice stack of firewood, either in your garage or your woodshed or wherever you keep your firewood, right before the start of heating season, and knowing that you're not going to be cold. You know, that's something that as I've gotten older, I certainly appreciate a lot more. I know growing up, firewood sometimes was kind of a chore that we were made to do, not necessarily that we wanted to do, but I got the bug, and I love firewood. I love all things firewood. My intention is to grow the business over the next 4 to 5 years back to a point where we are working with a processor again. I'm looking at possibly doing some different things with the business, as far as, you know, maybe not quite so much bulk heating, but maybe some bundled business and some bagged business. There's some things that I've been looking into and some opportunities that I've been looking into, and I think it's got some merit. So that there is now a tray that is ready and waiting for wax. So, you know, as you can see, kind of went slow. It took me about 5 minutes. So 5 times 20, it's 100 minutes. 100 minutes fills 240 of these things. 240 of these things at $1 a piece. Retail is $240. I will let you in on a little secret right now and let you know that once your molds are paid for, which are about $15 a piece, your wax and your heating of the wax is the only cost that you really have with these fire starters. So you're potentially looking at making somewhere in the neighborhood of, you know, probably $200 an hour making these. So at $200 an hour, if you have an outlet and a place to sell them, this really isn't a bad deal. So I'm going to fill up some more of these trays. Once the wax gets heated up and melted, we'll come back, we'll pour some of these and show you how that process goes. So as I'm filling these, I thought of some other things that you guys may want to know. I know in my earlier stages of doing this, I tried to use sawdust from carpentry work, you know, chop saws, things like that. Regular sawdust from a chop saw, skill saw, band mill, any of that stuff, I found does not work. It's too fine, so the wax doesn't have a good enough chance to get around everything. So when I first started this, I hadn't even thought of sawdust. It wasn't even a thought that crossed my mind. And I said to myself, well, that's fine. I'll just mix the sawdust in with the wax and I'll try to pour it that way. That's a hot mess that burns yourself. It's not fun. Don't do it. From there, I said, well, what about those bagged planer shavings, you know, the pine shavings or the cedar shavings that you can buy at a feed store? And I tried those. The cedar shavings smelt great. They burnt great. They're too big. They don't fit into these molds. They fit well into a large cupcake liner, but that fire starter is using about 5 to 6 times the material that I have in these silicone molds here. And not to mention, you have to buy it. So now you're talking another $10 a bag. Then you have to buy the cupcake liners, which, you know, none of these are big expenses, but if this is something that you're trying to do to generate some income, you want to keep your cost as low as possible. I mean, that's the name of the game. Keep costs down. So I got looking around and I said, well, sawdust is too big, sawdust is too small, shavings are too big. It was kind of like Goldilocks. I said, hey, what about the sawdust that I got kicking around anyway? So we tried it. And about the same time, I got some fire starters from another gentleman that has a fire starter company here in the US that makes a great product. Highly recommend him. Bluegrass Fire Starters, or Bluegrass Flame. Has a great product. I had a bunch of customers that wanted something that was Maine made. Up where I'm from, Maine made is a big thing. There's a special sticker that you can get right from the Maine Business Bureau, and it's showing a local made product. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, I bought these to retail them through. I don't know if I can come up with anything, but let's see. So I looked at everybody else's versions that were all bigger than mine. I looked at everybody else's versions that were in some sort of carrying container or device to hold them, and I said, I don't like this. I said, I want to be able to have something that I can reuse over and over again, and that will give me the opportunity to have just the product. And that's what I was after, was, you know, something that was just the product. And happened to be in a craft store, and I worked in food production for a number of years. I ran a large commercial bakery, so I'm always kind of production oriented. I actually went to school for automation and robotics technology. I find that stuff to be really fascinating. I got tired of the big business corporate grind. I didn't see the enjoyment in it. I was spending 60 to 80 hours a week helping somebody else fulfill and build their dream while mine waited on the back burner. My wife was going through grad school at the time, and I told her, I said, when you're done with school, we're gonna see what we can do with the business, and you know, I'm gonna try to go full time with it. And just like every other foolish person in America that has never run a business, I thought it was going to be sunshine and roses and that everything was going to be great. I did not realize that it was going to be 100-hour weeks and no pay for myself from time to time. I didn't realize the extra legwork that went into a lot of it. So the first couple of years were pretty rough. But we grew fast because we provided honest work at a decent price. I was doing landscaping and tree work, some earthwork, material deliveries, and of course firewood. Firewood was what I knew above all else. And this little guy is Mac, just like the Mac truck, and he makes a lot of noise. He's a French bulldog, but his ears haven't popped up quite yet. They're still there. If they stand up, he does look like a bulldog, but he makes lots of noise, so that's the noise you hear. He's fighting with his sister over a bone by my feet, because that's the best place to chew a bone, is right under Dad's feet. So anyway, we grew, and and things just didn't work the way I thought they were going to. I looked back at it from when my grandfather and I started doing firewood, and we made more money just doing firewood than we did running around doing all the other stuff. I was spending a whole lot of my week trying to make things happen. We had a bunch of equipment breakdowns and, you know, wood supply issues, and it, you know, a whole bunch of things came down at once, and I had to step back and regroup. Had a really good group of guys that worked with me. I had 3 to 4 guys that worked with me full time. Still friends with a good majority of those to this day. They helped get me where I am, and I don't forget that at all. You know, shout out to those guys for sticking by me when I had no idea what was going on or how to do it. And I took a step back and I said, I want to just do firewood again. The processor went away. We went back to hand cutting and hand splitting. I got back into a couple of other businesses with some local business owners that didn't work out in my favor. And I told my wife, I said, you know, I said, rather than try to work with somebody else and, you know, put all the time and effort into something that's not mine to begin with, because my business usually got put on the back shelf a little bit when we were doing these endeavors. And I like to stand behind my word as best as possible. It doesn't always happen. I have a bad tendency of overextending myself. And I think any small business owner does that. I don't think that that's just me. But I said we need to focus on the business, and that's what I've done the last couple of years. We kind of went back and refocused a little bit, and I've put more of my time and effort into my business and my family. Some of that maybe a little too late, but it's one of those things that you live and learn. Nobody's perfect. So when I tell you guys that I've made the mistakes, or I know what most of the no-nos and don't-dos and things like that are with firewood, I'm not kidding, guys. I've done it. I mean, you name it, I've done it. And some of it works, some of it doesn't, some of it you can make it work, some of it you're out that money, and that's all there is to it. I found out you do not lease woods equipment of any kind to anybody. I found out that working with someone else on a handshake deal is not something that you can do nowadays. That just doesn't work. So if it's not in pen and paper, don't do it, especially if it's involving money. I found the best way to lose friends is to loan money. And I found that there's no friends in business for the most part. Hey. You know, so with that being said, I've really focused on us, on me and Gramp. Hey, you're awful noisy. Fighting over Mom's slipper. So I focused on me and Gramp, and on the family and the little dogs, and it seemed to work pretty good. Everything's headed in the right direction again. Gramp's 78 years old. I don't know how much longer Gramp is going to... Hey, cut that out. I don't know how much longer Gramp is going to want to cut firewood. And that's kind of been in the back of my mind for, you know, the last 3 or 4 years. He's not getting any younger. He likes doing what he's doing, but how much longer is he going to want to do it? So, you know, eventually we'll go back to a processor and go back to doing it that way. But I want to get set up so that I can do it myself. You know, me and my son, Richard, he will be old enough to help pretty soon. My oldest son, Aiden, he's not into firewood, and that's quite okay. Firewood's not for everybody, and it may not be for Richard. So, you know, Dad needs to be able to get this set up so that I can do it myself without the help of other people. And, you know, once we get set up that way, then we can see what the business will provide as a sole proprietor. I'm not looking to do thousands of cords. And again, I've got some other ideas that we'll talk about later on. So like I said, I think I'm gonna maybe do things a little bit different. Phil and Karen, Alan's Family Firewood. Been watching a lot of their videos, pretty curious to see how his kiln works out. Thinking about doing something similar but different. I've got access to some refrigerated shipping containers. Thinking about possibly building a kiln out of those. Where I have the controls and robotics background, pretty sure that I can get mine to be USDA certified temperature wise if I can get the humidity controls and everything to work correctly. I've got some colleagues that I worked with in my previous job in the food service that do a lot of controls wiring, and they do a lot of temperature controls for lumber mills, and they've worked on kilns. So certainly somebody that I can sound things off from, get some help from. But I think kiln dried is going to definitely be the future of firewood. I don't know how long the green and seasoned firewood is going to work, especially with all of the politicians that are getting involved with firewood now. So I think in order to be successful in firewood going forward, there's going to be a couple of things that are going to happen. I think the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to see a huge push for EPA regulated stoves and boilers. Once that happens, once those are in place, that is going to change what a lot of us in this country know as firewood. Because I can speak just from our stove that we have behind me on my shoulder here, it does not like firewood that is split large. And it absolutely will not burn green firewood. And this is a clean burn, 87.5% efficient stove. It changed the way that I knew to run a wood stove. And that's fine, you know, we can adjust and we can adapt and we can do whatever. But I think that that's the direction that everybody's going to have to go. So I think that the kiln is going to be a real instrumental part of that. I see everybody with IBC totes and crates and baskets and all these wooden ideas that they're putting together. When I get ready and when we get going, once the processor comes back into the picture, our firewood baskets are going to be metal. They'll be welded, they'll be permanent, they're going to be something that'll be reused hundreds of times, and it's just going to be something that'll last. I realize the metal is an expense, and I realize a lot of us are small businesses, but I don't want to pay 2, 3, 4 times over to build a crate in the course of 5 years if I can build one out of metal and be done with it. So mine are going to be metal. I've also looked at all these different ways that people are trying to dump and empty and fill, and I think the simplest and the easiest way in the long run is to buy a set of rotator forks that will flip the baskets over upside down. Flip them back over, come out of the basket. All of this trying to cut an IBC tote. Where I am, IBC totes are expensive. You're talking anywhere from $75 to $150 a piece. And if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I'm going to buy some angle iron and some wire mesh or expanded metal. And we're going to weld together some crates, and they're going to hold a half a cord. I'll stick 4 of them under the processor, under the conveyor, or under the splitter conveyor, and when they're full, we'll level them off. I can stack them, they'll stack and nest inside each other, and I think it's the better way to go. I don't want to have to mess around with wooden crate. I just don't see that being a good option. I don't see them being a long-term solution for me. I'm a little rougher than most with things. I can't help it. You know, I try to be easy, but I'll break it. If it's gonna break, I'm gonna break it, or I'm gonna find a way to break it. And you know, that's me. So I think firewood's gonna change. I think we're gonna have to go to kiln dried. I think we're gonna have to do the smaller splits. And I think that's really gonna drive a lot of us into some of these value-added products like these little fire starters. I don't think there's a way around it. So, you know, I just think that that's something that we're gonna have to kind of watch and be cognizant of as we go. I know I am watching very intently on a few of the larger local firewood producers that are here in my area to see what they're doing. The kiln dried is a large expense. You have to heat that wood. It's an extra step to add. It's a big deal. It's not just as easy as saying, okay, we're going to do kiln dried firewood. So kiln dried is definitely something that is going to take a while. And I think if you can get on the front side of that, you'd be a whole lot better off. And it opens a lot more doors too. If you're going to get into bundled and bagged firewood, it gives you the opportunity to ship across state lines now, as long as it's certified. You know, somebody that has a homemade kiln, unless you get your certified controls or your controls certified so that they can guarantee that each batch of wood coming out is USDA certified, you still can't go across state lines or county lines if you're in an area where they have the ash borer beetle or things like that. So, you know, yes, you can have kiln dried firewood, but USDA certified kiln dried firewood is really what you want to be after, I think. And it's an added expense. It's an added step. It's record keeping, it's paperwork, it's things I don't like, but things that are going to have to be necessary. So those are things to be watching. I also think that the days of single cord deliveries on a firewood truck or a firewood trailer, with fuel prices and with everything the way they are coming to an end. That also puts a lot of people into things that they don't necessarily realize, like CDLs. A 3/4 or 1 ton pickup pulling a 10,001 pound or more payload is technically a Class A CDL, even if it does not exceed 26,000 pounds. And that's something that a lot of people disagree on. I know I watch a channel, Firewood at the Furnace, and he was an ex-DOT officer, and he had a really, really nice video explaining the basics without getting too far into it. The fines are big, guys. I have a Class A, so it's not a huge deal, but the fines are big. You know, if you're doing this for commerce, which most of us are doing this for money, if you have a legitimate business and you're doing this for commerce, this also puts us into the need for a US DOT number. That's something myself I have not done yet for multiple reasons. It's extra recording and paperwork on the maintenance and upkeep of your vehicles. It's extra recording at the end of the year. You have travel and safety audits. There's all kinds of stuff that goes along with that. But I think in order for me to continue to be in business and do that, you know, it's probably something we're going to have to look into. That being said, probably be bigger trucks because a 1 ton pickup is legally payload wise not able to pull a dump trailer with 2 cord of firewood in most instances. We all do it. I do it with a Tundra right now. I know it works, but it's not legal. And you know, the legal side of it is that they're trying to keep everybody on the roadways safe. And you know, that's what I'm after as well. I look at it as I would want somebody out there to be safe around my wife and kids and my family, and I want to try to do the same. So, you know, a bigger truck is certainly something that's in the near future for us. I don't know if it's going to be a truck and trailer or if it's going to be just a regular straight truck, but there's going to be some changes coming, probably mid-spring. Once mud season is done, we'll see some of those changes for me at least coming up, and we'll go from there. So I mean, these are all things to think about, guys. This is stuff that normal firewood people don't necessarily give a thought to, because we do what we need to do, we get the job done, we go home. But at the end of the day, to do this and be an upstanding business and to be something that somebody can model after, it has to be done the right way. And that's not always the easy way. So it's something to give thought to. So, you know, I know this is a lot of rambling, but these are just things that I've wanted to put into videos to be able to share with you guys. So we're almost done filling the trays here. Jasmine just came to say hello because I get lots of help when I'm in the house doing this stuff. Don't tip my fire starters over. Get down, please. So, you know, it's just, it's food for thought. You know, I'd like to know what you guys think. You know, do you guys think that this is worth doing? Did you realize that, you know, some of these criteria will push you into a commercial vehicle situation where you've got to have a US DOT number and things? You cannot use farm use plates for firewood. I have plenty of guys in Maine that run farm plates and sell firewood. Guess what? If you have firewood that is not your firewood, that is going to get delivered to someone else and you are going to be paid for, that is not a correct use of a farm plate and you are in violation. So, farm plates are not for firewood. A tree farm is not a farm. It's not agricultural plates. A tree farm can be part of a farm, but farm plates are not used for firewood and logging at all. And that's a really good way to get a really big ticket if you get caught. So, you know, there's another thing for at least us in Maine to think about. And I'm out of wicks, so we'll come back in just a minute. We'll cut some wicks and I'll show you how I do that little process. And then I've got just 3 more trays left to fill and we're done. So this is solid core candle wick that you can buy at any craft store. I basically zip off a couple of arm lengths. I will cut this off, set my wick down, find the other end, put them together, and then I will double this up a few times. Cut the ends. Flip it over, cut the other end. And then all I do is roughly, you know, 1.5 to 2 inch pieces. I'll cut those off, make a pile of wicks. Tried them without the wicks because there are a few companies and places around here that sell, you know, paper cup starters and things, and those work, but even those take a little bit to start because there's wax on just about every fire starter that you have has some sort of wax on it, so that you got to burn through the wax, and if you got to burn through the wax, you got to wait. The candle wick seems to be quicker lighting than the wax coated paper cups and things like that, so it's just a little easier that way. It's an extra step for me to make, but at the end of the day, if it's, you know, providing our customers with something that makes it just a little bit easier, I'm okay with it for right now. You know, that's not to say that down the road we're not going to find a better way to do it, but that's the general purpose and process for cutting the wicks. No real science, just pretty easy and straightforward. All right, so here we are, we're back. These are all dry and finished. Ran out of wax. I thought I had a couple more cases of wax kicking around, and I don't. So we were able to finish this batch of 270. I'll have to order some more wax because I've got more orders than I have fire starters right now. That's not a problem, we'll make more. But I'll show you how these release out of these trays. Pretty simple, pretty easy. And then we'll bag them up and get this order finished. So these silicone trays, just pick them up, flip them over, and just push out the bottoms. Pretty simple. And they'll fall right out. And I like to let them fall out, and I'll pick them all up individually and just kind of load them into the box or whatever we're going to put them in, depending on how we're selling them. And it knocks off any loose pieces. The loose pieces in the wax, I just put right back into the sawdust mix that we have, so we're not wasting anything. And you'll see in just a second here, they really, you know, empty tray, nothing there. And all we have here are just fire starters that are finished. So yeah, they're pretty straightforward and easy. They clear up in color, so when you look at them, they don't really look like they're white or like they're a candle at all. I'll flip this around and you can take a look at the actual fire starters themselves and get a little closer look, and we'll show a little closer look of taking them out of the trays as well. So here are the fire starters after they've been popped out of the trays. Candle wicks off to the side. Again, these are waterproof. You can throw them in a backpack, do whatever you want. Each one of these is going to burn 5 to 7 minutes on their own. They pop out, no problem whatsoever. So we'll finish popping these out of these trays and finish this order, and we'll be all set. So that's basically our operation on how we make fire starters. If anybody has any questions, or if anybody wants to purchase these wholesale, reach out to me, give me a message. We'll help you along, see what we can do for you, and we'll go from there. If you like this kind of thing, give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks, guys.